Congressman Elijah Cummings is the senior Democrat on the Government Reform Committee. He is as well versed as anyone in this Congress, better versed than anyone in this, in my opinion, on ways you can intelligently reform government to save money. But I know he's acutely aware of how you don't do that and the consequences of sequester, and we welcome his questions.
Thank you very much. I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your leadership. I want to thank my colleagues for being here, and I want to thank our witnesses. Dr. Fuller, let me start with you. Sometimes I try to put myself in the place of the regular citizen who sits here and watches this. They got to be scratching their heads. Based upon what you just said, basically you're saying we're digging ourselves a deeper ditch. Is that right? I mean, with this sequestration situation, if it goes forward.
This is a hole. It's worse than a ditch.
It's worse than a ditch. And I'm trying to figure out, you said when you started your testimony at the beginning, you said it's about jobs, income, and economic growth. And I guess you could add to that quality of life when I listen to the things that were said here today. I want to just ask you this. One of the things, I sit on the Joint Economic Committee also, and I hear this word over and over again in the Joint Economic Committee from my colleagues on the other side. They talk about certainty, how important certainty is. And then I look at what is going on here with regard to this possible sequestration. First of all, tell us how important certainty is to business, to growth, and what impact would this have on that certainty? Could you elaborate, please, sir?
Yes, excellent point. I wish I had addressed this directly. Uncertainty is a word in economics. Investors will not risk capital if they don't have a sense that they have an opportunity to get their money back with reasonable return on that. Consumers won't spend unless they have an idea that they're likely to be a little better off next year than they were last year. They're going to hunker down, which is what they've been doing for the last 5 years. They've been, increased savings is good, more careful spending is good, but they're not going to go out and buy another house. They're not going to buy a car or upgrade their clothing, buy furniture. They won't do. They may not invest in higher education. We've seen applications for universities already beginning to pull back because people don't think that investing in higher education is going to prepare them for something better than if they didn't. Now, it seems to me, I've used this metaphor. I'll take just a minute because I think it really says something, and it's as if we're trying to lose 30 pounds, and there's a couple ways to do this. You could go on a starvation diet, just drink water for 30 days. You'd lose your 30 pounds. You'd be sicker than whatever. You're likely to gain them all back. Or you could cut out dessert and start working out. And in 2 years, you'd be healthy. You wouldn't gain the weight back. You'd be a new person. Think about the economy, how we do this. I'm going to go on a starvation diet, just go cold turkey, and destroy what it is that, in fact, is necessary to make this economy great. We are poised to come out of this ugly downturn that has just struggled and struggled to gain traction. The forecast for 14, 15, 16 provide some optimism that we're going to get beyond this and we're going to be a lean operating economy, competitive in the world, unless we destroy the opportunity to get there. And that's what we're doing. 13 is the critical year. I can't imagine how we would do anything else but strategically put money into the system to make it work better and have it poised for further expansion.
Doctor, let me go a step further. I was listening to some of my colleagues one of the morning shows, and they were saying, "Well, we'll go and we'll have sequestration for, a little while, then everybody will wake up, and then some kind of way we'll bring it together and make it happen. And sometimes I get this impression that folk don't realize the full impact that this, they think that, well, maybe people are just exaggerating. And I'm just wondering, let's say, for example, we were to go into sequestration for a month, 2 months. How does that impact all of what you've been talking about? How do you see that panning out? And let's say then we shift to a plan like my colleague Mr. Van Hollen just talked about. Let's say after 2 or 3 months. Because I think I've heard him say this, and I'm just curious, thinking, and it's almost as if there's a game being played, and folks are not seeing the true significance of what is happening.
How long can you hold your breath? We can't afford 2 months. There are, and Ms. can talk to this better than I can, there are companies out there that are hanging on. We're still, every week, we hear about 370,000 layoffs. Today, this morning, on the initial claims, they went up by 10,000. Well, they're not as bad as they used to be, but companies are still struggling. You pull a contract, you threaten not to renew a contract, you can't get financing, you can't borrow money to grow your company or to sustain it over this 2-month period while we're waiting for somebody to make a decision to go forward. We're going to lose skills. We have 4.5 million unemployed workers who've been unemployed for more than 2 years, They've quit. They're done. They're not coming back. We can't afford to waste resources like this. The best message, this is like running around the Daytona 500 this next weekend with a yellow flag. How long can you do that before you run out of gas? We need the green flag. And this economy is going to move along. The federal government can get out of the way a little bit probably. It's not essential in everything it does. I don't know. We could argue about that, I suspect, but we could find out what it isn't essential. But cutting everything back 10% or 7% or whatever the number is certainly isn't a way to do that in a selective, creative fashion. So I don't think the economy can recover in 2013 if you shut it down, in effect, for 2 months. Because it's been shut down in a way ever since November. People have held back because of the threat of the fiscal cliff. They've been very careful about investments. They're not hiring yet. We're running at best at half speed. This economy is at best half speed.